Alex, congratulations on your recent victory in the general election. It was a close, well-fought battle. Can you tell us what you learned from the campaign in regards to the business community going into 2020?
Well, as far as the business community were concerned, there's really, I suppose, three things. First, there's a real need to lift the cloud of uncertainty. So delay and indecision and paralysis are damaging in and of themselves because people hold back on investment ideas. That's the first thing. The second thing is I think businesses want to see locally Cheltenham really improving its infrastructure so that we can attract the kind of businesses and investments. So that means the air balloon, that means faster train services to London, it means building out the cyber park. And third, you know what, business people, surprising to say, are human beings like everyone else, so they want to see great public services as well. So it means those great businesses providing the tax revenue to fund our schools, to fund Cheltenham General Hospital and wider healthcare in the county as well.
You voted for the withdrawal bill in its second reading before Christmas, which allows for leaving the EU without a deal at the end of 2020. Can you give businesses a reassurance about that? And will you vote for leaving the EU if it comes to that?
So look, throughout, I've always taken the view that 52-48 was the mandate for leaving the European Union and for doing so with a deal. So in the last Parliament, when backbenchers, by the way, had a lot more power because it was a hung Parliament than they might do in this one, I was always in favour of that. So I worked for MPs for a deal, which was a cross-party organisation. I voted for Theresa May's compromise deal 3 times. And I also voted for a customs union. And you know what? The supreme irony of all this is some of the loudest political voices who are saying no deal will be a complete disaster for this country and for business are the self-same voices who, when their opportunity came not just to leave with a deal, but to tie up the future relationship, failed to take that opportunity. So they didn't vote for a customs union, didn't vote for the Norway option, didn't vote for Theresa May's deal. So look, throughout, I will continue to be that voice of moderation and leaving with a deal. But people need to understand sometimes that taking an extreme position risks you getting the very opposite of what it is you're trying to achieve. But I actually think that having squared off the money, having squared off the citizens' rights, we're now in a much, much better place for everyone to just dial the temperature down, work out what is in our mutual best interest. There'll probably be high alignment in respect of those goods which would otherwise form a significant non-tariff barrier in terms of inspection, plus more divergence in areas where you can do so without there being those tariff barriers. So you might think of it as technology or natural sciences, those sorts of things. That's where I suspect we're headed. But look, we've got to take this in stages. I think we're in a better place now. There is political stability in this country, and I think there's a sort of sense of optimism and can-do spirit that we can get a sensible deal, and that's what I'll be in favour of.
You've won your seat 3 times within the last 5 years. You're a Conservative MP in a Conservative government. What advantages will that bring to Cheltenham and the business community?
Well, look, I mean, I've always thought that as the MP for Cheltenham, you have several roles. One, yeah, is you go and vote on stuff. That's right. Sometimes you've got to go and seek redress for grievance on behalf of your constituents, so changing the law on stalking or whatever it is. Sometimes it's bringing private members' bills to solve huge global issues like climate change, fine. But some of what you have to do as well is to get stuff for your patch. I've always seen that as a really important part of the job. So it's fighting for the A&E or trying to get investment for the cyber park, £23 million, which is something that, as you know, I've talked about a lot. That remains my focus. I want to get stuff for this town, and it's not just for the sake of it, you know. It's because we have areas in Cheltenham that are some of the most deprived, not just anywhere in Gloucestershire, but anywhere in the country. And I think, as somebody who believes in businesses for their ability to unlock that treasure that is in the heart of people, to unlock the potential in communities, that if we can attract that investment through me being an MP there, then that will help the town, and most importantly, it will help the people who live here.
That big issue about Boots Corner in Cheltenham, how do you assess its reopening?
Look, I'm afraid I think it was inevitable because it proceeded on a completely flawed prospectus. So those who were coming up with this idea were never able to say where the traffic was going to go. And in fact, if you asked them that question, they specifically said, we don't know. Or it will go where it wants to go. And it proceeded on that flawed prospectus. And equally, you know, when they came to speak to me before they came up with this, and they asked for my views, I said, I think this will be a mistake because the justifications you provided just simply don't stack up. And I have faced so many emails from people in residential areas saying this is bad for the environment, bad for the climate, because their vehicles are having to take longer journeys and they're being shunted into residential areas where they're belching out fumes. So look, I'm afraid I do think this is inevitable. The thing that I find depressing about it is just imagine what that money could have gone to, particularly for creating a more sustainable environment, which I want to see. You could have had the rollout of EV charging points in Cheltenham so that we could have become a pioneer in Gloucestershire for electric vehicles. We could have had the rollout of cycle lanes to improve sustainable transport, getting people on bikes, which I think is so important. So I always felt that this was the solution to a problem that didn't exist. It was bungled in the way that it was rolled out. It was misconceived, and I'm afraid its decline was probably inevitable.
And what are your priorities for 2020?
I have always felt that the core priority for Cheltenham was to ensure that we had excellent public services sustained by a thriving business economy. The reason for that, the risk of stating the obvious, is that you only have fantastic public services. And by the way, the total amount the NHS spent in Gloucestershire last year was around £500 million. You only have those excellent public services if they are funded by a thriving business community. So I want to see Cheltenham General Hospital go from strength to strength. That means having a Gloucestershire Cancer Institute, which is I'm going to try to support in the course of this year. I want to see that supported by the thriving business community in terms of the rollout of the cyber park, in particular the infrastructure which is going to unlock that cyber park. That is critically important as well. So really those are two important aspects. But of course there are other issues as well. Cheltenham's the new school for the south of Cheltenham as well. We want to make sure that that is delivered so that it's ready to take on pupils next year, but also is done so in a way that is sympathetic to the local environment, and I'm sure that's a circle that can be squared.